A popular debate in the current media climate is the discussion about whether or not violent video games are harmful to society. There are fundamentally two sides to this. The first posits that video games are harmful in that they propagate harmful values and establish behavioral and mental patterns in people, particularly children, which can potentially lead to them causing physical harm to themselves or others. The second is that video games have no causal link to real-world violence, and they should therefore be left out of these conversations. The internet being the gamer haven that it is, it's quite rare to see anyone arguing for the games are harmful side in popular internet circles beyond mothers, politicians, and Christians. Therefore, I'd like to suggest that video games can be harmful to their players and discuss the discourse surrounding video games and empathy generally. My actual opinion in the matter is somewhat muddied. On one hand, I think that video games can certainly inflate or even inspire certain behaviours in already troubled minds that if left unchecked could cause real harm to people. However, I don't think this is enough in itself to ban an entire art form from public consumption. Catcher in the Rye has been linked to both the murder of John Lennon and the attempted assassination of Reagan, but no one heard this and thought, oh gosh, it's those darn books corrupting the minds of the youth. I guess it's time to ban all books, because that would be stupid. I think there are a few reasons video games are so central to discussions of violence. Firstly, they're a relatively new form of media, and as with all media, there's a period of public uncertainty about it. Looking back at television's perceptual evolution since its inception, it's constantly becoming more and more of an accepted and normal thing even compared to 20 years ago, and I don't think video games are any different to this besides the time difference. Secondly, the viscerally real nature of games and their everlasting push for immersion makes the question of how much game actions differ from reality a lot harder to ignore. In his essay, The E in Media is for Empathy, Christian Happ asserts that video games are in the unique position of being able to manipulate empathy in ways that only video games can do, by forcing the player to make choices in the game that they would only be a third-party observer of in other media formats. The problematic aspect of this is that if the idea of games being a tool for manipulating empathy is an acceptable concept, it should follow that games aren't entirely separate from the real-world emotions of their players. Therefore, if you accept this, then you must be willing to accept that games at the very least have some effect on the empathy of their players, which opens up discussion to a whole range of ideas about the ethics and morality of playing video games and how they may affect developing minds. In spite of this, I don't think this is an issue that can be tackled easily or possibly even at all. As stated earlier, it doesn't make much sense to outright ban video games, since this ends up depriving citizens of certain media, which only makes them want the medium more until you've created even more demand for the product and then realise you've just become Australia. Therefore, it would seem that the only real way to deal with violent video games as a perceived issue is just to make a judgment call to not give preteen children murder simulators, and hope everything just turns out okay when they inevitably get a hold of them anyway, which it almost invariably does.